Hey, it's Ben. And today I'm joined by Mahi here. And so I wanted to talk today about four-legged therapy. So we're living in our modern age, a time of increasing isolation and loneliness. The advances in technology, on one hand, while they facilitate communication, they're also creating this profound disconnect. The fact that so many of us are spending more and more time relating with our screens as opposed to relating with one another. And and many of us are suffering because of that. And with the COVID, and when we went into lockdown, the it just exacerbated matters all that much more, because we got so used to working remotely, and instead of meeting people in person, we were interacting over Zoom and Skype and or the phone or whatever. So we just weren't spending as much time together. And I notice, as many people have, that even though um, we're continuing to come out of that. I mean, we're not fully done with COVID. I know I keep hearing of more people who are testing positive here and there, and still getting quite sick. So we're not completely done with it. But in any case, COVID just exacerbated matters, and we were already headed in that direction. But at this time in history, and even prior to COVID, it's we haven't been as social as we used to be in quite a long time. Um, and going back, you know, you know, 5, 10, and more years, and there used to be so much more interaction. I mean, there, all kinds of meetings and activities, and things for people to go out and do, and there still are to some extent, but it's it gets to be a real problem getting people to show up. I mean, I would offer classes on a weekly basis, and oftentimes it'd have 10, 15 or more people sign up, and sometimes only a few of those people would show up. But all kinds of community functions, and people just don't go out because they're uh, sitting behind their screens, staring into the idiot tube, my term for television, or they're scrolling on their phones. And much of what we do on social media, it's more like a passive kind of activity where we're just, say, scrolling through our Instagram feeds. We're not necessarily communicating with one another. And as we're spending more and more time online, again, it's that there's less time that we spend actually engaging with one another. And and so because of that, as I was saying, we're experiencing a lot more loneliness, isolation. And I read an article a week or so ago, if I say his name right, Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, and he's talking about this sort of epidemic of loneliness. And you're seeing it, especially in the elderly, but even children, teens, and people of all ages are experiencing it. And so I don't remember if he quoted this, but he may have. I also read it in several places, but they're saying that loneliness is about as harmful to you as like smoking like 15 cigarettes a day. I don't know how they came up with that determination, but in any case, it has some pretty devastating health consequences. Emotionally, we're far more prone to anxiety and depression. And when people are suffering from depression, there's higher incidence of suicide. And there's also increased incidence of heart disease and stroke, and you know, inflammatory disorders, as a result from, people just not having the connections with other human beings and just profound, again, sense of loneliness, isolation. Thing is that, with our dogs, our cats, other mammals, even birds, they provide us a sense of companionship, and it's especially valuable at this time when we just don't have as much interaction with other people, friends or family, or just even people just out in the community. It's we go out for the day, either we're out at work or doing whatever we're out doing, and we come home and it's like, they're happy to see us return. I mean, cats purring, or dogs just uh, barking, jumping up and down, just jumping on us, and just genuinely excited to, that we're back home. And and the relationship with our dogs and cats, and other mammals, for many of us, it's the closest thing that we'll know to unconditional love. I mean, it's, the relationship is, what you say, non-evaluative. They're not forming judgments of us, and they're just, again, there's that love and affection. And there's, for many of us, our dogs and cats are, and other mammals are like the strongest emotional bond that we have. Again, it's unfortunate, but um, the disconnect or the distance between people. And it's happening for many reasons. One, as we spend more and more time on our devices, as I said, we're less inclined to get out and to interact with people. The other thing too is the emotional wounding that many of us carry. The fact that, when we internalize a lot of the hurt, frustration, anger, grief, all these other emotions, when we're not processing those emotions, then they become internalized. And these emotions create like a buffering. They create more of a gap or a distance between ourselves and other people. And so, in many respects, we want to connect, but as we internalize the hurt, say of past heartbreaks, going through a breakup or divorce, betrayal, being ghosted, or just whatever, it's hard for us to be as trusting and to be as open or receptive. And all that emotion that we internalize, that's sitting within our bodies. We're holding it within our bodies. And even though we may not be consciously aware of it, it's like as those emotions sit there and they're unprocessed or undigested, it's creating this tremendous barrier between ourselves and other people. So we can't be as close, we can't be as intimate. And, and it's one of the reasons it's so important for us to learn to work constructively with our emotions, because as we do so, then it increases our capacity for intimacy. We're able to open up to, we have a greater capacity to love, to experience compassion for others, to care for other people, and to allow ourselves to be loved. But, a lot of people are just not there. So, again, it's all the more reason that we need our animal companions. She's breathing pretty heavily. I don't know that this is coming through on the microphone, um, but other thing is that so many of us are touch starved. As children, we ran and we played all kinds of, games, hide and seek, and we were dive bombing or tackling each other, doing. We just had a lot of fun, and we weren't so hung up about so many things, and so we had all this like physical contact, and especially as young children, we were held by our parents and other family members, and but as we get older, so many of us don't have all that much physical contact, and I mean, it varies some, being in different cultures. One of the things I liked about spending time in Sri Lanka is that there was a lot more physical contact that I had with friends. And a lot of that physical contact, it's non-sexual, but it's just you feel much more connected to people. At least I did. But we don't have that so much in the West, in North America, in Northern European countries. We're a lot more reserved, or you know, we, we're not that physically engaged, or at least most of us are not. But with our animal friends, like um, Mahi, or like, I'll be working on projects on my computer and she's like laying right next to me, or she's um, uses my foot as a pillow. And Mahi actually lives with my mom. I travel quite a bit for work, and so I come back a few times a year to northern Idaho to visit. We had another schnauzer before, Murphy, and Murphy left the planet about 4 years ago. And at night when I would be sleeping, Murphy would, I'd be laying on my side, and Murphy would lay with his back right next to mine. So, um, and especially being in New York City, spending a lot of time in New York, it could be extraordinarily difficult to connect. And um, I don't know, some people, very much at home in the city. And if you're part of the arts and theater community, maybe if you're still in college or something, you have extensive community. But if you're not, like many people, you go to work all those long hours, you come home, and you don't have much of a social life. And there's, at least from my sense of it, there's just a lot more barriers between people. And so having this, the connection, of Murphy when he was alive, Mahi, now when I come back to visit, it means a lot to me, to have that. Now, I have a very different kind of relationship with animals, probably than a lot of people. The fact that I spent years training with a traditional Native American doctor, an actual medicine man. And a big part of the training involves going alone into the mountains to fast for 4 days and nights with no food and no water. So going through that, it's like opening up to this intensely powerful presence that comes into my body. Sometimes it's like a near-death experience. And times I've relived periods of my life, events, past traumas and everything, many of which I'd completely forgotten about. And I'd be, all the vivid sensory impressions, the emotions, just everything I experienced at the time was coming back, and I'd be processing or digesting that. But then the other thing is I work as a conduit to allow this, extraordinarily powerful presence to work through me. And so I think animals really pick up on that. A lot of people's dogs and cats, other birds, other mammals and all, pick up on it and are often drawn to it. This friend some years back, when she had a Alaskan, was it a husky Malamute? I'm not exactly sure, but her dog Kayla would just be howling every time I'd come over and just get so excited. Other people, this woman had a cat named Tiger, and yeah, I'd come over and she'd say, "Tiger, your friend's here," and Tiger's like strutting up to me, wants my attention the moment I get there. But yeah, because of doing this, it's the animals pick up on it, and they're even that much more drawn to me. But again, animals, dogs and cats and all, they sense what we're going through. If we're hurt, if we're upset, if we're angry, or if our life seems to be blowing up on us, and they care about us. Many instances they're to the best of their ability, they're striving to be there for us, to console us, to let us know that it's okay, that we're going to be okay. Animals are incredibly present in the moment. As human beings, we worry about the past, or we fret about the past, we worry about the future. And, we're so much of our attention is sucked into our devices. And so we're just not present in our bodies. But our animal friends are, again, just so incredibly present. And just the fact that they're present, they have a way of just engaging us. And the way they do so, it just draws us more into the body. It reminds us to be more present. And if you are lonely and you have like a cute dog, I guess you could take a cat out on the leash too. But if you have a cute dog, especially, gets attention. People want to stop and say hi to your dog, pet your dog, talk to you too. So it can be a great way to meet, connect with people. Um, Again, what I was saying about being present. Um, as we get older, we don't play. I may have mentioned that a while ago, but um, but our our dogs and cats, like, I mean, Mahi's always like, running up, to she's jumping on me and barking, and she wants to play tug of war. And Murphy would get so excited, and he would be, especially after I'd give him a bath. He wasn't crazy about taking a bath, but he looked kind of pathetic in the bathtub. But as soon as I got him out of the tub and dried him off, he would be just running in circles. And both Mahi and Murphy, both, they um, they love it when I chase them around the house or chase them around the yard and everything. Animals give so much to us. I mean, yeah, it does require some effort. I mean, I love human children too, but there's a way that our animal children are real special to me. They don't, and it is nice the fact that they're not so demanding. I mean, yeah, it does get kind of expensive as they get older, because vet bills are, even when they're younger sometimes, But and it saddens me, because it's an unfortunate reality that some people will, especially during COVID, a lot of people, were taking in dogs and cats, and then when things opened back up, during COVID, there were like photos and stuff, these animal shelters, and they were just empty because people just came and took all the dogs and cats there, took them into their homes and stuff. But then after COVID, a lot of people just, um, just went back to work, went back to life as they knew it, or to some approximation thereof, and just ended up abandoning a lot of these animals. And so, I, my situation's challenging because the fact that I do travel with my work, and so I'm not able to keep a dog with me all the time. I mean, this is actually my mom's dog, and so we hang out and visit, spend an enormous amount of time. She actually ignores mom much of the time when I'm here, and she's hanging out with me all the time. And and I feel bad about it too, because when I leave, I mean, sometimes Murphy would be depressed for a week or more, and I think she's pretty bummed out too when I go. But I just do the best I can to give her as much love and attention when I'm here. You know, everywhere you go, it's a trade-off. There are pluses and minuses, and in many respects, I find it much easier to connect with people on a deeper, intimate, emotional level when I'm in South Asia, when I'm in India, when I'm in Sri Lanka. But There are drawbacks too. I mean, there are things like, the casteism, which I find pretty disgusting, and which I feel needs to be abolished, eradicated, and hopefully in a few generations will be, um, or lose more of its significance. The other thing is that dogs and other animals are really not really um, some people feed strays, take them in and feed them, and there are some animal shelters, but it's really heartbreaking at times, to um, and I would see a lot of these strays out on the street, and uh, if I could get a hold of any food, I would go and feed the stray dogs and pat them, and try to show them that someone actually cares for them. And some of these dogs were sickly, and watching, like where people would just take a puppy or whatever and just abandon it, and um, it's just very difficult to watch. So when we take in a dog or a cat, or other animals, it's like they have just enormous amounts of love to give us. And I feel it's important, to whatever extent we can, we need to show love, and to show compassion to our um, our four-legged friends here on the planet. And that also means like spaying and neutering, because like, Sri Lanka, India, and you see all these strays and they're running around and they're not spayed and neutered, and, they just keep having more litters, and it's just no one's feeding, or a lot of people are not feeding these dogs, and many of them do starve. Many of them do die, unfortunately. Um, to me, in many ways, having a dog, it's like having a child. I feel like it's having this like 2-year-old child to care for, and so we have people children. To me, I really enjoy having dog children. I enjoy the people children as well too, but um, and it's again, playing, and Mahi really loves her toys. I mean, she's got um, her little pink hippo, and her let's see, she's got her shark here. And she's pretty brutal with toys. If they're not tough, she'll like shred them. And then she's got her little pig here. I think she's probably tired of me holding her, so I'm gonna set her down. Oops. Okay. And, uh, but yeah, every dog, cat, our animals, they each have their own personalities. So it's like, we have different relationships with every human individual who's in our lives. And and so same as we take in different um, or we interact with different dogs and cats and birds and other mammals, even reptiles. Um, the hardest or most difficult part of loving or caring for our animal friends, especially with, well, birds. I mean, a lot of these birds will outlive us. We can, a lot of times people take in a bird and, or adopt one, and they have to leave the bird to someone else in their will because the bird's going to outlive them. It often does. But especially our dogs and cats, often sometimes they only live a few years, but I think cats tend to live longer, but often with dogs, it's like, 10, 12. Murphy ended up living 14 years. And I think it was difficult for him, especially because he was so attached to me. And I just wasn't in a position where, wanted so much to just find somebody to partner up with, in New York City, where I was spending so much time. Even being there, I was working in Boston too, a good part of the time, and so I was going back and forth, and so I wasn't in one place much of the time, and so I was thinking like, well, if I had someone I was partnered with when I was gone, at least she could be there to care for him. But it's just it's eh, it's my experience being in New York City. I just found it so extraordinarily difficult to connect. And conversely, I've had not at the same time, but I've had two serious um, relationships with women in Sri Lanka. So, just to have that connection on a intimate level is like I was just commuting back and forth. I was like working my ass off in New York and Boston. And then I'd get on the plane and I'd head to India. I'd be spending all this time in Sri Lanka. And so my personal life was in Sri Lanka, and then I'd come back and work again in New York. And then at times I'd come back to northern Idaho and be spending what time I could with Murphy and now Mahi. And but it was about 4 years ago, as I said, when Murphy was starting to run into trouble. I think when he was about 11 and a half, and it really hit me then that, he just wasn't going to be here forever. And, and even from the time he was 5, it was hitting me. But at one point, I think he was prone to seizures. And so he was, one day he couldn't get up. Mom was talking about putting him down. And I just was scheduled to fly in a few weeks later. And I said, no, wait, I need to at least, see him to say goodbye before he. And but fortunately, he was back up and on his feet that day. And from that time, I started working with him. A lot of people have had me work with their dogs and cats, even turtles. um, and Mahi's chewing on my toes now. And sometimes animals are pretty restless. I mean, they sense that power when I'm working with them. And so Murphy would get restless and agitated. And so what I would do is I'd wait till he went to sleep at night and be laying on the bed. I'd go to work. And I remember one time, like he was out, but I started working on it and he felt this jolt and it just like, it jolted him awake and he literally just leaped to the other side of the bed or something. And he was like, staring at me like, what was that? and and then after a while, he starts getting tired. He settles down, he lays down, he drifts back to sleep, and I go to work with him. And I think treating him, kept him alive at least another year and a half, and that time was just incredibly precious to, in that last year, I made additional trips back to Idaho just to spend time with him. And, it's just, again, my biggest regret, with him was just not being able to keep him all the time, because there was just such a profound bond that he and I shared with each other. And so, yeah, it was definitely devastated when he passed. It was like losing, on one hand, it was like losing my best friend, and on the other, it was like losing a child. So, um, the man who does all the work to repair my backpacks and all that, suitcases and stuff, and he's here in northern Idaho, and one of his two dogs passed. I mean, that's the name of his business, two dogs, was it shoe and leather or something like that. He does amazing work, by the way, if you happen to be around Coeur d'Alene, northern Idaho. But Jeff was saying something to the effect of that, one of his dogs had to put him down, and that, he couldn't handle that, the grief or the pain of losing another a dog again. But I think it's much better to love than have lost. And grief and loss are just a part of our lives, and so important thing is what we do with it, and that we're able to be present, you know, center our awareness in the depth of that grief, sadness when we do experience a loss of our animal friends, of our dog children, and breathe with them the feelings. And as we work with that grief, as we breathe into it and digest the grief, sadness, a loss, it helps to open our heart and increase our capacity to love and to be loved. And just the fact that you can make a difference in the life of a dog or cat or bird or um, turtles or um, other mammals or whatever. Um, yeah, it's just the love that you'll receive in return for what you give far outweighs any effort. You know, yeah, there are challenges. Murphy likes our um, chewed up a lot of stuff. Mahi chewed up one of my phone cords. Fortunately, she hasn't destroyed any shoes. Um, and and getting her house broken was quite a challenge. I mean, she was peeing on the carpet repeatedly, and um, I think she pooped a few times, but she's doesn't happen very frequently anymore. So she's learning, and but anyway, um, can't think of anything else to add for today, so I'll leave you with that. But other than just it's just a tremendous opportunity to having our animal friends or children in our lives. It's tremendously healing. And especially the fact that we're living in a day and age, a time when people are so alone, so incredibly isolated, disconnected from one another. And we need the connection, the love, and the support and that we receive from our animal friends and children. So I think that's good for now. Catch you later. Bye now.